Maya arrived at the training camp early in the morning, her heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and nerves. The sun was barely rising, and a thin layer of mist hovered over the fields. The camp looked intimidating from the start. Rows of tents, large obstacle courses, and the sound of boots marching echoed across the grounds. She had heard stories about how tough this place was, how it pushed people to their limits, but she had never imagined just how real it would feel until she stepped through the gates. Carrying her heavy backpack, Maya felt the weight of more than just her belongings. It was the weight of expectations, her own, and the ones she assumed others had of her. She had trained for months, preparing herself physically and mentally, but she knew that training on her own was nothing compared to what awaited her here. As she walked toward the main assembly area, she noticed groups of trainees already laughing and talking, looking confident and strong. Their bodies were toned, their movements sharp and precise, and they wore expressions that seemed to say, "We belong here. Do you?" From the first moment, she felt their eyes on her. Whispers followed her as she passed by, some curious, some skeptical, and some openly mocking. She could hear snatches of conversation. "Who's the new girl? She looks fragile. Bet she won't last a week." Maya didn't respond. She had learned long ago that people would underestimate her, and she knew that the best response was to stay calm and let her actions speak. The commander of the camp, a tall and imposing man with a stern face and piercing eyes, stood at the front of the assembly area. His presence alone seemed to demand respect, and the chatter among trainees immediately quieted. He surveyed the newcomers carefully, noting their posture, their expressions, even the way they carried themselves. Maya noticed him briefly glance in her direction, but he made no comment. The commander's silence was deliberate. He wanted to see how each trainee would perform under pressure, without giving away any hints. Maya found her assigned bunk and started unpacking. The room was basic: metal bunk beds, lockers, and a small window that let in the early morning light. Other trainees had already claimed their spaces, some neatly arranged, others messy. A few of them looked at her, smirking or whispering among themselves, clearly amused by the newcomer. One tall man with a confident grin leaned back against the wall and muttered under his breath, "This is going to be fun." Maya didn't react. She had been here before in different ways, feeling judged and underestimated. What mattered now was proving herself, silently and steadily. After settling in, the trainees were called to the field for the first introduction to the camp's routines. The air was crisp, and the smell of fresh grass mixed with sweat and anticipation. Maya watched as groups of trainees ran drills, lifted weights, and navigated obstacles with ease. Some of them laughed and joked, clearly comfortable in this harsh environment. She felt a flicker of doubt for a moment, wondering if she had misjudged the difficulty, but she quickly pushed it aside. Doubt was a luxury she could not afford. As the first exercises began, Maya struggled slightly with the fast pace, her muscles tensing under the unfamiliar demands. She stumbled a little during a sprint, and a few trainees noticed. Some laughed openly, pointing at her, making mocking gestures. Maya's cheeks flushed, not from embarrassment, but from the sharp edge of determination that rose inside her. She straightened her posture, reminding herself that she had survived tougher situations before. This was just another challenge, one that she was ready to face. Throughout the morning, the newcomers were tested in small groups, learning the rules, the schedules, and the expectations. Maya observed carefully, noticing patterns in the exercises and in the reactions of her peers. Some trainees were naturally aggressive and competitive, trying to assert dominance. Others seemed nervous, struggling quietly to keep up. Maya realized that surviving here wasn't just about physical strength. It was about observation, strategy, and mental endurance. By midday, the sun climbed higher, and the first wave of fatigue began to set in. Maya's muscles ached, but she refused to show weakness. Even when someone tripped or failed a task, she kept moving steadily, finding a rhythm in the chaos. Little by little, she started to gain the attention of a few trainees who had been watching her quietly. They noticed that she wasn't just struggling. She was learning, adapting, and preparing to come back stronger after each challenge. As the day came to a close, Maya felt a mixture of exhaustion and satisfaction. She had survived the first day, despite the mocking looks, whispered comments, and physical strain. The other trainees were beginning to whisper among themselves in a different tone now, curiosity mixed with respect. The commander observed silently from the edge of the field, his eyes sharp, noting her movements, her resilience, and her quiet determination. Maya lay down on her bunk that evening, her body sore, her mind alert, and a quiet smile on her face. She knew this was only the beginning, but she also knew one important truth. The mockery of today would not define her. Her actions in the days to come would. And deep inside, she felt ready for whatever this training camp could throw at her. The next morning, the air at the training camp felt heavier, almost as if it carried the weight of unspoken challenges. Maya woke before dawn, her body still sore from the previous day's grueling exercises. Despite the aches, she felt a strange excitement. Today would test her more, and she was determined not to falter. She dressed quickly, tying her boots tightly, and stepped out into the crisp morning air. The field was alive with movement, trainees running drills, practicing formations, and shouting commands to one another. From the moment she arrived, Maya noticed the subtle changes in the way people looked at her. The mockery from yesterday hadn't disappeared, it had only grown sharper. Whispers followed her wherever she went. She's trying too hard. Bet she'll fail before lunch. Look at her struggling already. Even the trainees who had seemed neutral yesterday now looked at her with a mix of amusement and disbelief. Maya kept her head high, moving with steady purpose. She had learned long ago that those who mock usually fear what they don't understand. The first drill of the day was a complex obstacle course designed to test endurance, speed, and balance. Trainees climbed ropes, leapt over walls, and crawled through muddy trenches. Maya approached the starting line, heart racing, aware that every eye was on her. As soon as the whistle blew, she sprinted forward, pushing her body hard. Yet, despite her determination, she stumbled at a tricky section, a narrow beam suspended above a pit. A few trainees chuckled loudly, their laughter cutting through the air like knives. One of them, a tall, muscular man, even imitated her stumble, exaggerating his movements so the others could see. Maya paused for a split second, feeling a rush of embarrassment, but she didn't let it show. She took a deep breath, centered herself, and moved forward with precision. She climbed over the wall, navigated the beam, and slid through the mud with a speed that surprised even her. By the time she crossed the finish line, a few of the mocking trainees were visibly impressed, though they tried hard not to show it. Maya's determination was quiet, but it spoke louder than their laughter ever could. The commander watched from the sidelines, his face unreadable. He noticed Maya's perseverance, but he remained silent, letting the trainees' dynamics unfold naturally. He wanted to see who would break under pressure, who would rise, and who could lead quietly without demanding attention. Maya's performance had not gone unnoticed, and while she hadn't impressed everyone yet, she had made an impression on those who mattered most, the leaders watching and the few observant peers who could see beyond appearances. Later, during a teamwork exercise, Maya was paired with a group of trainees who had been particularly vocal about her shortcomings. They assumed she would slow them down and planned their strategies without including her input. As the exercise began, it became clear that their assumptions were wrong. Maya's quick thinking and sharp observation helped the group navigate obstacles more efficiently. She suggested a shortcut through a narrow path that saved time and pointed out potential hazards others had overlooked. Slowly, the smug expressions of her teammates began to fade into reluctant acknowledgement. Even though Maya's contributions were subtle, they carried weight. She didn't boast, she didn't demand praise. She simply acted. Her calm and methodical approach contrasted sharply with the arrogance and impulsiveness of those who had mocked her. Trainees who had been laughing at her earlier found themselves following her advice, sometimes grudgingly, sometimes out of genuine respect. Maya realized that earning respect wasn't about proving everyone wrong instantly. It was about consistently showing competence and courage in every small task. The midday meal break was quiet, filled with murmurs and sideways glances. Some trainees who had mocked her before kept their distance, unsure how to interact now that she had proven herself capable. A few of the more observant ones approached, cautiously, asking about her background, her training, and how she managed to move through obstacles with such poise. Maya answered politely, giving little away, maintaining the air of calm confidence that had begun to define her presence at the camp. The afternoon brought more challenges. Endurance runs through uneven terrain, navigation exercises in dense woods, and mental drills that tested concentration under fatigue. Maya faced each one with steady determination, ignoring the laughter, the whispers, and the occasional sneer. She noticed a change beginning to take place. Some of the trainees who had mocked her were now watching her with curiosity, questioning their own assumptions. It was a subtle shift, but Maya felt it keenly. Respect, even if quiet, was beginning to grow where ridicule had once ruled. By the end of the day, exhaustion settled over the camp like a heavy blanket. Bodies were sore, faces were grimy with sweat and dirt, and the sun had left a warm glow across the field. Maya returned to her bunk, physically tired but mentally energized. The mocking had not disappeared entirely, but it had lost its sting. She had endured their laughter, outperformed expectations in critical moments, and shown that she was more than capable of meeting the challenges of the camp. As she lay down to rest, Maya reflected on the day. She realized that Mockery was a test in itself, not of her strength, but of her patience, focus, and resilience. Those who laughed at her had no idea what she had endured in the past or the skills she carried quietly beneath the surface. The camp was brutal, yes, but it was also a place where her abilities could shine if she remained steady and true to herself. She closed her eyes, determined for tomorrow. The challenges ahead were daunting, but Maya knew that she had already passed the first true test. Not the obstacles, not the physical exercises, but the judgment of others. The morning sun broke over the training camp, casting long shadows across the grounds where Maya and the other trainees gathered. It was the third day, and a strange rhythm had begun to settle into the camp. The laughter and mocking of her first days had not completely disappeared, but it had started to shift into something quieter: curiosity. The other trainees were beginning to notice that Maya was not like the others. She moved with purpose, she observed closely, and she adapted quickly to challenges that would trip up many of her peers. Today's exercises were different. The instructors had designed them not just to test strength but skill, strategy, and mental sharpness. Trainees were split into smaller groups to complete a series of drills, some physical, some tactical. From the start, it was clear that Maya had been underestimated. When her group began the first drill, a complex navigation exercise through a dense wooded area, several of her teammates assumed she would slow them down. They talked loudly as they moved, discussing shortcuts and criticizing each other's choices, ignoring Maya entirely. But Maya had learned to focus on her own observation, to notice details others overlooked. She spotted hidden markers, avoided obstacles, and even predicted the movement of her teammates in tricky sections. When she suggested a subtle change in route, her voice was calm and quiet, almost hesitant, but precise. At first, her teammates ignored her. Yet, as they stumbled through mud or tripped over roots, frustration crept in, and one by one, they began to listen. By the time they reached the checkpoint, they were slightly ahead of the other groups, and a few of the trainees shot her wary glances, beginning to understand that she was quietly brilliant at this. Physical drills followed: long runs, climbing exercises, and strength challenges designed to push the trainees to exhaustion. Maya's body ached from the previous days, but she approached each challenge methodically. While others relied on sheer force, she relied on strategy. Pacing herself, positioning her body efficiently, and using technique rather than brute strength. When the instructors announced a team obstacle relay, some trainees doubted she could keep up. Yet Maya surprised them, completing her section faster than expected, helping her team gain critical seconds. She didn't cheer or boast. She simply moved to the next station, focused and calm. Throughout the day, Maya's quiet skill began to catch attention. Some of the more arrogant trainees tried to challenge her openly, assuming she would falter under pressure. But every challenge only revealed her preparation and resilience. She didn't need to prove herself to everyone, only to those who truly mattered, the instructors and the few peers who observed carefully. A small group of trainees who had been skeptical began following her lead, silently acknowledging that she had something unique. By midday, the mockery of the first days seemed almost distant. Whispered comments about her weakness had changed into questions. How does she move so smoothly? Where did she learn that? Even the instructors noticed. During a break, one instructor quietly commented to another about Maya's potential, noting her calm under pressure and her keen observational skills. She was performing at a level that others didn't even suspect, and yet, she carried herself modestly, never drawing unnecessary attention. The afternoon exercises were even tougher. Trainees were given a time challenge, a series of complex tasks that tested memory, focus, and coordination. Many struggled under the pressure, panicking as seconds ticked by. Maya, however, stayed calm, remembering small details from the instructions that others had overlooked. Her teammates began to notice her precision. At one point, a complicated task required assembling a piece of equipment in a specific order. While the others fumbled, Maya's hands moved quickly and accurately. Her team completed the task with time to spare, and for the first time, some trainees looked at her with genuine respect. It wasn't just her skill that set her apart, it was her attitude. While others complained about fatigue or joked at each other's mistakes, Maya remained focused, encouraging, and patient. She didn't need to raise her voice or demand recognition. Her competence and quiet confidence naturally drew attention. Even those who had been openly mocking her couldn't ignore it. The shift was subtle, but it was real. The laughter that had greeted her arrival was replaced by a tension of curiosity and, slowly, admiration. As the day drew to a close, the commander observed silently from his vantage point. He had noticed her from the beginning, but today he could see something different. Maya wasn't just surviving the camp. She was excelling in ways that were not immediately obvious. Her physical strength was solid, yes, but it was her mental sharpness, her observation, and her ability to remain calm under pressure that made her stand out. For the first time, the commander allowed a small nod of approval, recognizing a trainee who possessed true potential. By evening, Maya returned to her bunk, exhausted but satisfied. Her body ached, but her mind was alive with confidence. She had survived another day, but more importantly, she had begun to change the way others saw her. Mockery was giving way to respect, and curiosity was replacing doubt. She knew the journey ahead would be even harder, but she felt ready. She understood now that real strength wasn't about proving herself to everyone. It was about staying true to her own abilities, letting actions speak louder than words, and remaining steady no matter how others judged her. As she lay down to rest, Maya thought about the days ahead. She realized that the challenges at the camp weren't just physical. They were tests of patience, intelligence, and character. And she knew, deep in her heart, that this was where she belonged. For the first time, she allowed herself a quiet smile. The people who had doubted her would soon discover that Maya was more than they could ever imagine. And the journey of proving herself was just beginning. The fourth day at the training camp dawned with a sharp, cold breeze, carrying the smell of damp earth and sweat. The atmosphere was tense. Maya had already spent 3 days proving herself in subtle ways, and now the instructors were ready to push the trainees even further. Today's drill was not just about endurance or strength. It was a high-stakes tactical exercise, designed to test teamwork, quick thinking, and the ability to adapt under pressure. The entire camp buzzed with energy as instructors explained the scenario. A simulated mission requiring precision, strategy, and flawless execution. Maya's group was paired with the top-performing trainee, a confident young man named Ryan. He was tall, muscular, and used to being the center of attention. From the start, Ryan assumed he was leading, speaking loudly and making decisions without consulting the others. He glanced at Maya with a smirk, clearly doubting her ability to contribute. "Stick to the basics," he said, almost as if he were warning her not to slow him down. Maya didn't react. She had learned that arrogance was best handled with quiet competence, not confrontation. She simply listened, observing the terrain, the obstacles, and her teammates' tendencies. The mission began. Trainees sprinted across uneven terrain, crossing streams, climbing embankments, and navigating around obstacles. Ryan took charge, barking instructions, but his strategy was flawed. He focused on speed rather than precision, rushing past checkpoints and overlooking critical details. Maya noticed immediately. While Ryan rushed, she calculated the safest, most efficient routes, guiding her team subtly without drawing attention. At first, Ryan ignored her suggestions, convinced his approach was superior. But as the first errors appeared, misplaced equipment, minor injuries from careless movements, his confidence wavered. Maya remained calm. She took initiative without boasting, calmly correcting mistakes and pointing out better approaches in a way that encouraged, rather than challenged, her teammates. When the team reached a tricky obstacle, a deep trench with a narrow bridge, Ryan froze, unsure how to proceed without risking a fall. Maya stepped forward, demonstrating the proper balance technique and showing exactly where to place each foot. Her quiet confidence inspired the team, and even Ryan reluctantly followed her lead. The bridge was crossed safely, and the team gained valuable seconds in the exercise. As they progressed through the mission, Maya's tactical sense became increasingly apparent. She anticipated the next challenge before it appeared, noticing hazards and planning safe paths. She divided attention evenly between the physical and mental aspects of the mission, ensuring the team stayed on track. By the midpoint, even the skeptical trainees began to recognize her value. Whispers of surprise circulated. "She's actually good. How does she know that?" Maya ignored the praise. Her focus was on completing the task efficiently, not winning approval. Meanwhile, Ryan's initial arrogance had begun to fade. He realized that Maya's calm, strategic thinking was the reason their team was performing better than expected. He struggled with the pride of having to follow someone he had underestimated. But Maya never drew attention to his mistake. She simply guided quietly, letting the results speak for themselves. By the time they reached the final checkpoint, the team had completed every task ahead of schedule. For the first time, Maya's teammates looked at her not with doubt or amusement, but with respect. The instructors observed the group carefully. They noted Maya's ability to adapt, lead quietly, and remain calm under pressure. Unlike some trainees who relied solely on physical strength, Maya demonstrated both mental acuity and emotional control. The commanders were impressed, not just with her skill, but with the subtlety of her influence. She didn't need to dominate or shout. Her competence naturally drew the team forward. It was the kind of leadership that could only be seen through observation, the kind that left a lasting impression on those who understood it. After completing the tactical exercise, the group returned to base, physically exhausted but mentally alert. The other trainees, including Ryan, had started to change their attitude. Mocking had vanished completely. Curiosity had taken its place, mixed with a touch of admiration. They whispered quietly among themselves, trying to understand how someone they had dismissed so easily could outperform them in critical moments. Maya simply unpacked her gear, cleaned her equipment, and prepared for the next drill, unaffected by the attention she was receiving. By late afternoon, the camp was quieting down. Trainees were given time to rest, review their performance, and reflect on the day. Maya found a quiet spot near a tree, stretching her sore muscles and reviewing the mission in her mind. She thought about each obstacle, each decision, and how she had adapted in ways others had not anticipated. While some trainees focused on their failures, Maya focused on her learning. She understood that real progress came not from proving oneself in front of others, but from steady improvement and smart decisions under pressure. As evening fell, the commander made a rare announcement, praising the top-performing groups. While he did not single anyone out, there was a subtle nod toward Maya's group. The recognition was quiet, almost understated, but it was enough. Even without words, the other trainees understood that Maya had played a critical role in their success. The quiet respect in their eyes was more powerful than applause or verbal praise. It was acknowledgement of her skill, determination, and leadership. As Maya lay down on her bunk that night, her body exhausted and her mind buzzing, she allowed herself a small smile. The fourth day had proven something important. Skill and intelligence could outshine arrogance and mockery. She had begun to carve her place in the camp, not through loud declarations or displays, but through steady, undeniable performance. And deep inside, she knew that the days ahead would demand even more from her, but she also knew she was ready. The journey was far from over, but Maya had already begun to leave her mark. The fifth day at the training camp arrived with a sense of anticipation that hung over the grounds like the morning mist. Maya had already begun to prove herself through quiet determination, skill, and tactical thinking, and the shift in her peers' perception was becoming more noticeable. The laughter and mockery that had greeted her arrival had faded, replaced by curiosity, cautious respect, and whispers about her mysterious abilities. Little did anyone know that the biggest revelation of all was still waiting to be uncovered. The day began with standard physical exercises, stretching, and warm-ups, but the instructors had something different planned. Today was an intensive field training session, where trainees would face a long series of challenges, endurance tests, teamwork drills, and mental exercises that demanded focus under pressure. The air buzzed with energy as everyone prepared for the tasks, muscles tense, minds alert. Maya moved with calm focus, her eyes scanning the surroundings and her thoughts running ahead to anticipate every obstacle. She had learned that preparation wasn't just about strength. It was about observation, patience, and timing. As the morning progressed, the trainees were asked to engage in exercises that required flexibility in their routines. This included climbing, running, and carrying heavy loads while navigating rough terrain. Maya performed each challenge methodically, never rushing, never showing fatigue, and always helping her team when needed. Even those who had doubted her skills were beginning to acknowledge her effectiveness. Some whispered to each other, "She's not just strong, she's smart," or, "I don't know how she does it." Yet Maya remained quiet, letting her actions speak louder than any words could. The real turning point came during a mid-morning drill when the trainees were instructed to change into lighter training gear. The heat of the sun made it practical, and most of the trainees complied, removing their outer layers. Maya did the same, adjusting her uniform. And that's when it happened, the moment that would shift everyone's perception permanently. As she moved, a glimpse of a large tattoo on her back became visible. At first, the trainees didn't recognize its significance. Some simply glanced and looked away. But to those with experience, the intricate design immediately stood out. It wasn't just a decorative tattoo. It was a symbol of elite military achievement, a mark reserved for those who had undergone the most challenging, secretive, and respected training programs. Even from a distance, the design conveyed history, endurance, and honor. Maya noticed the sudden silence around her. The chatter stopped, whispers faded, and even the usual bravado of some trainees disappeared. The commander, standing at a distance observing the group, froze. His eyes widened, and his posture shifted slightly as he recognized the symbol. This was not a mere decoration. It was a mark of someone who had endured experiences far beyond what most trainees could imagine. For a moment, the commander's expression turned pale, a rare display of emotion from someone normally unreadable. He stepped closer, studying the tattoo with a mixture of surprise and respect. The trainees, too, were captivated. Some had mocked her just days earlier, calling her weak or inexperienced, but now they looked at her in awe. The tattoo told a story of strength, courage, and dedication that was undeniable. Whispers spread through the camp. "That's incredible. I can't believe she did this already." Even Ryan, the confident trainee who had led her group, looked at her with a mix of humility and astonishment. It was a moment that completely shifted the hierarchy of respect in the camp. Maya did not react to the attention. She continued her exercises with calm precision, demonstrating that her skill and dedication were not limited to the tattoo she bore. It was simply a reflection of the person she already was. The other trainees began to follow her more closely, seeking advice and guidance. The commanding officer approached quietly, asking her about the symbol in a tone of curiosity and respect. Maya explained briefly, never boasting, and in that simple acknowledgement, the tension in the camp changed entirely. Where there had been doubt, mockery, and uncertainty, there was now respect, acknowledgement, and a subtle sense of admiration. The rest of the day's training took on a new energy. Exercises that had once seemed routine now felt charged with intensity. Trainees were more attentive, following Maya's guidance with focus, realizing that she was not just another trainee but someone with experience, insight, and quiet leadership. The commander, who had previously observed from a distance, now paid closer attention, making subtle adjustments to the drills that allowed Maya's talents to shine even further. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows over the camp, Maya returned to her bunk, exhausted yet composed. She had faced the scrutiny of her peers, endured mockery, proven her skill, and now revealed a part of her past that commanded respect without her needing to say a single word. She had demonstrated that real strength and achievement are not measured by appearances or initial impressions, but by quiet resilience, consistent skill, and the courage to carry one's history with dignity. That evening, the camp was quieter than usual. Trainees moved with a new sense of focus, and even the most skeptical of them looked at Maya differently. The commander, still thoughtful, knew that her presence had changed the dynamics of the camp. She was no longer just a newcomer. She was someone to be observed, respected, and perhaps even followed. Maya, meanwhile, lay down on her bunk, reflecting on the day. She knew that respect earned through demonstration of skill and courage was far more powerful than recognition through words. And in the quiet of that evening, she felt a deep sense of accomplishment, knowing that the most important barrier she had faced, the judgment of others, had finally begun to fall. The morning of the 6th day at the training camp began with an unusual tension in the air. Word of Maya's back tattoo had spread quietly among the trainees overnight. The whispers were no longer about her potential but about her past achievements and the symbol of elite experience she carried. The atmosphere was electric with curiosity, and Maya could sense it, though she remained composed, walking through the camp with calm confidence. Her presence no longer invited mockery. It demanded attention. The commander, who had observed her silently during the previous day's reveal, now seemed deeply intrigued. Normally reserved and unreadable, he watched her movements with a mixture of respect and caution. Maya noticed his gaze but didn't alter her behavior. She had learned that true strength lies in quiet consistency, not in performing for recognition. Today, however, she sensed that her actions would be under even closer scrutiny, and that made every step, every motion significant. The day began with a complex set of drills designed to push trainees both physically and mentally. Teams were assigned problem-solving exercises under time pressure, requiring coordination, quick thinking, and clear leadership. Maya was paired with a mix of skeptical trainees and those who had quietly begun to admire her skill. Even Ryan, the confident trainee who had doubted her earlier, now seemed wary but attentive. As the exercise started, it became clear that Maya's calm demeanor and strategic mind were exactly what the group needed. Within minutes, a challenging obstacle arose. A series of unstable platforms suspended over a shallow but wide pit. Panic and hesitation rippled through the group. Trainees shouted directions, some jumped recklessly, others froze in fear. Maya assessed the situation silently, calculating balance points, speed, and risk. She stepped forward, demonstrating the first move with precision, then coached the others through each step. Her instructions were concise, clear, and confident. Slowly, the group crossed safely, earning valuable time in the exercise. For the first time, the commander leaned forward, signaling subtle approval as he observed her approach to leadership. After the obstacle, the exercise moved into a mental challenge. Trainees had to memorize sequences, solve puzzles, and make strategic decisions while under physical strain. Many struggled to keep focus, exhausted from previous drills, but Maya thrived under pressure. She remained composed, completing tasks efficiently and helping her teammates stay on track. Her presence was not overbearing. She guided through example and quiet advice, letting the results speak for her. Even those who had mocked her earlier began to rely on her judgment. During a brief break, the commander approached her. His usual stern expression was softened by curiosity and respect. "Maya," he said quietly, "I didn't expect this level of skill from a new trainee. Tell me about your background." His tone was serious, almost cautious, as if seeking confirmation of what he already suspected. Maya replied with calm honesty, sharing just enough information to explain her training and experience, without exaggeration or arrogance. She spoke with clarity and modesty, and in that brief exchange, the commander's eyes reflected recognition and perhaps a hint of admiration. The rest of the day's exercises seemed to transform. Where once she had been overlooked, now Maya's guidance was sought. Trainees who had been vocal skeptics began following her instructions carefully, realizing that her strategic approach could make the difference between success and failure. Even Ryan, whose pride had been bruised by previous experiences, started cooperating, acknowledging silently that Maya's methods were superior in critical moments. Maya never flaunted her knowledge or skill. She simply demonstrated competence, allowing her actions to shape the team's outcome. As the afternoon progressed, the exercises grew more complex and taxing. Teams faced simulations of real battlefield scenarios, navigating tricky terrain, responding to unexpected obstacles, and coordinating under strict time limits. Maya's calm analysis, combined with her practical instructions, allowed her team to excel. The instructors noted her performance carefully, impressed by the combination of skill, strategy, and emotional composure. It was clear that Maya possessed qualities that went far beyond physical ability: leadership, critical thinking, and resilience under pressure. By the evening, the training camp was quieting down. Trainees returned to their bunks exhausted but reflective. Maya, as always, took time to review the day's exercises mentally, thinking about each obstacle, each decision, and each strategy. She knew that respect was earned through consistent action, not words, and she was determined to continue proving herself quietly, steadily, and effectively. Her mind was alert, analyzing both her own performance and that of her peers, always seeking improvement. The commander lingered near the training field even after most trainees had left, watching her approach to leadership and teamwork. He realized that Maya's presence had shifted the dynamics of the camp in a subtle but profound way. She was no longer simply a trainee. She was a natural leader, someone whose abilities commanded respect without demanding it. In her quiet confidence, in her steady actions, he saw the potential for someone extraordinary, someone capable of inspiring and guiding others under pressure. That night, Maya lay in her bunk, physically exhausted but mentally energized. She reflected on the day's events and the shifting attitudes around her. The commander's attention, the growing respect from her peers, and the subtle acknowledgement of her skill all reinforced a truth she had always known. True strength is not about winning the approval of others, but about staying consistent, focused, and composed in the face of doubt and challenge. Maya closed her eyes, ready for whatever the next day would bring, knowing that the hardest tests were still ahead. But so was the opportunity to continue proving her skill, courage, and quiet leadership. The seventh day at the training camp began with a sense of anticipation and tension unlike any other. Maya had now become a known figure among the trainees, her quiet competence and strategic thinking transforming the way others approached her. Where once there had been mockery and doubt, there was now respect, curiosity, and even a subtle sense of awe. Her peers watched her carefully, some hoping to learn from her, others silently admitting that they could no longer dismiss her. The commander, too, was observant, noting the way her influence was shaping team dynamics. The day's exercises were designed to be even more challenging than previous ones. Trainees were faced with a multi-stage mission that tested physical endurance, tactical skill, teamwork, and problem-solving under extreme stress. The scenario simulated a real battlefield situation, with unpredictable obstacles, time-sensitive tasks, and the need for constant decision-making. Each group was given the same mission, but success would depend not just on strength but on coordination, observation, and adaptability. Maya's group, now aware of her abilities, looked to her for guidance, and she accepted the responsibility without hesitation. From the start, Maya demonstrated remarkable calm under pressure. The first stage involved navigating through rough terrain, crossing streams, and scaling steep inclines. Many trainees faltered, either pushing too hard too fast or hesitating in fear of missteps. Maya, however, moved with precision and foresight, guiding her team to the safest and most efficient routes. She quietly directed others, helping them avoid hazards without making them feel inadequate. Her methodical approach contrasted sharply with the rushed, often chaotic efforts of other groups, and her team began to pull ahead steadily. Next came a series of mental and strategic challenges. Trainees were required to memorize sequences, solve complex problems, and adapt to sudden changes in instructions, all while physically exhausted. Maya's sharp mind shone in these moments. She stayed focused, processed information quickly, and made decisions that maximized efficiency while minimizing errors. Her teammates, inspired by her composure, followed her example. Even those who had once doubted her skill began to rely on her judgment, realizing that her quiet confidence was rooted in real experience and intelligence. The most critical part of the mission involved coordinating the team to perform simultaneous tasks. Some trainees struggled to communicate effectively under pressure, while others panicked when mistakes occurred. Maya, however, acted as the anchor. She divided tasks logically, assigning roles based on her team's strengths, and ensured that everyone remained calm. When one teammate faltered under stress, she offered a steadying hand and a few quiet words of encouragement, instantly restoring focus. By the time they reached the final stage, her team was working in seamless harmony, moving like a well-oiled machine while other groups struggled with confusion and miscoordination. Meanwhile, the commander watched from a distance, his expression revealing a rare mix of surprise and approval. He had trained countless recruits over the years, and it was uncommon to witness someone demonstrating such an exceptional combination of physical skill, tactical thinking, and leadership. Maya was not only performing at an elite level herself, but she was also elevating her entire team's performance. Her quiet influence had turned a collection of individuals into a cohesive, efficient unit, and the commander recognized that this was no ordinary trainee. By the afternoon, it became clear that Maya's group was outperforming all others. Her peers were no longer skeptical or competitive in the old sense. They were inspired. Ryan, once the confident skeptic, now followed her guidance with humility, recognizing that her methods were superior. Other trainees approached her, asking questions about her strategy, curious about how she remained so composed and precise under pressure. Maya answered simply, never boasting, letting her actions continue to speak louder than words. Her focus remained on the mission, on helping her team succeed, and on proving herself through results rather than attention. The final challenge tested every skill Maya had demonstrated over the past week. Trainees had to navigate a simulated crisis scenario, requiring rapid decision-making, endurance, and coordination. Teams that relied solely on strength or instinct struggled, but Maya's group moved with remarkable efficiency. She anticipated obstacles, adjusted strategies on the fly, and maintained morale among her teammates. By the time they reached the finish line, her team had completed the mission flawlessly, setting a standard that no other group could match. After the exercise, there was a rare moment of recognition from the commander. He spoke quietly to Maya, acknowledging her exceptional performance, leadership, and ability to elevate her team. It was not a public display, but the significance was unmistakable. Her peers, standing nearby, were silent for a moment, reflecting on how someone they had once underestimated had now proven herself to be extraordinary. Maya, as always, remained humble, simply acknowledging the team's efforts and preparing for the next challenge. As evening fell, the camp was quieter than usual. Trainees reflected on the day's events, realizing that they had witnessed a true display of skill and leadership. Maya's influence had transformed the dynamics of the group, turning doubt into respect and skepticism into admiration. For her part, she lay in her bunk, physically exhausted but mentally sharp, reviewing the day's challenges and planning how to continue performing at her best. She knew that respect was earned not through words or gestures but through consistent, quiet competence. And she felt a quiet satisfaction knowing that she had done just that. The 7th day marked a turning point. Maya had moved from being an underestimated newcomer to a respected leader within the camp. Her skill, composure, and quiet guidance had reshaped the perception of her peers and drawn the attention of the commander in a meaningful way. She was no longer just a participant. She had become someone to be observed, relied upon, and admired. And deep inside, she knew that the final day of training, the ultimate test, would soon arrive, bringing the chance to cement her reputation and demonstrate the full extent of her abilities. The 8th day at the training camp began with an air of tension and anticipation that could be felt throughout the grounds. This was the final assessment, the ultimate test that would determine which trainees had truly earned respect and recognition. The instructors had prepared a complex, high-pressure scenario designed to push everyone to their absolute limits, physically, mentally, and strategically. Maya, now a known figure among the trainees, approached the day with quiet determination, aware that this was the moment to show what she was truly capable of. The mission was announced early in the morning. A full-scale simulated operation requiring endurance, teamwork, strategy, and rapid decision-making under stress. Each group had to navigate rugged terrain, overcome obstacles, and complete a series of tasks within a strict time limit. Many trainees were nervous, their adrenaline spiking as they anticipated the challenges. Maya, however, remained calm and focused, her mind already calculating routes, anticipating pitfalls, and preparing her team for every eventuality. From the moment the mission began, it became clear that Maya's skills had grown even sharper over the past week. She led her group with quiet authority, assigning roles based on each trainee's strengths and keeping the team coordinated under pressure. Where others panicked or rushed, Maya remained steady, her instructions clear, concise, and perfectly timed. Her calm presence reassured her teammates, allowing them to perform beyond what they thought possible. The first obstacle was a treacherous series of steep inclines and narrow ridges. Many trainees stumbled, losing time and confidence. Maya guided her team carefully, demonstrating the safest and most efficient ways to traverse the terrain. She moved ahead to show the proper technique, then supported each teammate through the difficult sections. Even those who had doubted her in the past now followed her instructions without hesitation, fully trusting her judgment. By the time the team reached the next stage, they had already gained a critical advantage. Next came a high-pressure tactical exercise. Teams were required to navigate a maze of challenges while making quick strategic decisions, responding to unexpected changes, and solving problems under stress. Many groups became disorganized, shouting at one another or making mistakes that cost them precious time. Maya, however, kept her team focused. She communicated efficiently, anticipated potential errors, and adapted their strategy in real time. Her combination of mental sharpness and leadership under pressure ensured that her team moved smoothly, overcoming obstacles that had caused other groups to falter. The most difficult part of the mission tested endurance and coordination. Trainees had to carry heavy equipment over rough terrain, cross streams, and complete precision tasks simultaneously. Fatigue set in quickly, and many struggled to maintain focus. Maya, though exhausted herself, continued to push forward with steady determination. She offered encouragement where needed and maintained a calm composure that inspired her teammates to persevere. Her leadership was not loud or boastful, it was subtle but profoundly effective. By the time the final stage arrived, it was clear to everyone observing that Maya's team had become a force to be reckoned with. They approached a simulated rescue mission, requiring them to navigate through difficult terrain and extract a casualty safely. Other groups struggled under the pressure, making mistakes and losing valuable time. Maya's team, guided by her strategy and composed execution, completed the mission flawlessly. Every movement was precise, every decision calculated, and every teammate performing at their best. The commander, who had been observing throughout the day, finally stepped forward. He looked at Maya with a rare expression of pride and respect. "Well done," he said, his voice carrying the weight of genuine acknowledgement. You have not only completed the mission but have done so with skill, leadership, and composure that few possess." The other trainees, watching in awe, understood the significance of this praise. Maya had not only succeeded individually but had elevated her entire team, demonstrating qualities that went far beyond physical ability. Even those who had mocked or doubted her in the past were now silent, their skepticism replaced with admiration. Ryan, once confident and dismissive, approached her quietly, offering a nod of respect. Other trainees followed suit, recognizing her as a natural leader whose skill and determination had reshaped the dynamics of the camp. Maya accepted the acknowledgement with humility, giving credit to her team and reminding everyone that success came from cooperation, focus, and steady effort. As the day concluded, the instructors gathered the trainees for a final review. Maya's performance was highlighted not only for her skill, but for her ability to inspire and lead quietly. Her presence had transformed the camp's environment. Mockery and doubt had given way to respect and cooperation. She had proven that determination, preparation, and quiet confidence could overcome assumptions, prejudice, and skepticism. That evening, as Maya returned to her bunk, she reflected on the week's journey. From the first day, when she had been mocked and underestimated, to this final moment of triumph, she had remained true to herself, focused on her skills and committed to excellence. She knew that respect and recognition were earned through consistent effort, resilience, and quiet leadership. The camp had tested her body, mind, and spirit, and she had passed every challenge with grace and determination. Lying in her bunk, exhausted but proud, Maya allowed herself a small smile. The journey had been demanding, even grueling at times, but it had proven something far more important than physical strength. She had shown that true capability is measured by skill, composure, and integrity under pressure. She had earned the respect of the commander, her peers, and herself. And in that moment, Maya understood that this was not just the end of a training exercise. It was a testament to what dedication, courage, and quiet confidence could achieve. The 8th day ended with a sense of completion and triumph. Maya's story, once filled with mockery and doubt, had now become one of admiration and inspiration. She had overcome prejudice, proven her skill, and emerged as a leader who inspired those around her. Her journey through the camp was a powerful reminder that true strength lies not in appearances, but in determination, intelligence, and the courage to rise above judgment.